So it's time for Tell Me a Story. And if you want to join me on Facebook Live, you can register by going to our home web page. Click on ongoing stories, ongoing youth programs, and you would click on this icon, Tell Me a Story Online. Click on the link, and you'll be able to register. So I want to share a new resource today, and that resource is the audiobooks that are available at the Pontiac Public Library. So to get to this resource, you would also go to Pontiac Public Library home webpage, and you can click on Youth Services again, and one of the choices you will get is online audiobook cloud. So today we're going to enjoy a story, and let's get reading. It's called Pedro's Fables, Kings, Queens, Princesses, and Giants. Simply need to click play.
The Great Palace of Lies by Pedro Pablo Sacristán. Once upon a time, all the spirits set out to build two palaces, a palace of truth and a palace of lies. Every time a child told the truth, a brick was added to the growing Truth Palace walls. In just the same way was the Palace of Lies built. Each brick was created when a child told a lie. Both palaces were impressive, the best in the world, and each group of spirits worked hard to make sure their own palace was the best. The lying spirits, who were much more tricky and deceitful, sent a group of spirits out into the world to get children to tell more and more lies. These spirits were very successful and started getting many more bricks. As a result, their palace became bigger and more spectacular. But another day, something strange happened in the Palace of Lies. One of the bricks turned into a cardboard box. A little later, another brick turned into sand. And then another turned into glass and smashed. And so little by little, it became clear that whenever a lie was discovered, the brick that it had created changed its form. It was then crushed and finally disappeared. In this way, the Palace of Lies became weaker and weaker, and in the end, it completely fell to pieces. At this, everyone, including the lying spirits, understood that you cannot use lies for anything. They're never what they appear to be, and so you never know what they'll turn into. The end.
Works of the Kingdom by Pedro Pablo Sacristán. Once upon a time, a king ordered his two sons to build two large aqueducts to supply water to his country estates, which were in a very poor state due to a great drought. The first son took part of his father's riches and part of the army. With them, he traveled north, where he ordered the people of those lands to work hard on building the aqueduct. He oversaw the work very carefully, paying the villagers fairly and finishing the project within the predicted 2 years. Proud of his work, he returned to the palace, only to find the place in the midst of celebrations for the coming crowning of his brother as king. He was told that his brother had taken only 1 year to build his aqueduct in the south, and that he had managed to do the job with hardly any soldiers or money. This seemed so strange to the first brother that he began to investigate the southern aqueduct. What he found amounted to more than a few irregularities. He returned to the palace, telling his father that it was madness to make his brother king. "Why do you say that? Is there something I should know?" asked the king. "You know how much I love my brother, but, well, he must have gone crazy. He's dragged our good names through the gutter. He built his aqueduct deviating from the plans, and he created so many outlets that barely half the water arrived at the royal estates. He confronted the prime minister in front of the villagers, and he left without paying any of the workers. He even used your soldiers as laborers. And who knows, maybe that's only a start." The king, gazing affectionately at his son, replied, "Yes, my son, what you say is true. Your brother had the initiative to modify the aqueduct, to improve it, the wisdom to propose something which would improve the lives of everyone. And so he convinced the villagers to work quickly and without pay. He even had the courage to confront the prime minister, to defend justice, and the charisma to get his soldiers to work even more hours than the villagers. Why, his commitment was so great that he himself was the one who worked the hardest on the project, forgetting his princely status. And you know what, son? This is why everyone adores your brother and would do anything he were to ask of them. He is more than their king. He is their leader." The prince left, deep in thought. Soon he came to realize that the words of his father indeed pointed to the greatness of his brother. And without hesitation, he ran to his brother and congratulated him. The end.
The Boy Who Almost Became a Prince by Pedro Pablo Sacristán. A king who had no children announced a competition.
"Loyal subjects, we shall have a competition to decide who shall become prince and inherit the throne."
The boy who passed all the tests, although excellent, was impatient. That worried the king. So the king decided to test the boy.
"Listen up, boy. You see that great treasure deep in the woods? Well, if you are still here, waiting with this dog when I return, you will receive the whole kingdom."
The boy accepted the challenge, but soon became impatient.
"I can wait here for the king to return and get the whole kingdom, or I could just grab that treasure and flee."
And the dog said,
"Oh no, don't do it. The king has offered you the whole kingdom. Wait for his return."
"Nah, it's taking him too long to return. I want that treasure."
Well, despite the dog's warnings, the boy entered into the forest. And as soon as he did, the treasure disappeared. And so, the boy lost both the treasure and the chance to inherit the kingdom. The end.
Queen's Journey by Pedro Pablo Sacristán. A young queen was given a special present from a great wizard.
This is a chest which will bring happiness to the entire kingdom whenever it is opened in a place where there is a spirit of generosity.
The queen traveled all over her kingdom, looking for the most generous people. When she had collected them all, she opened the magic chest. However, nothing whatsoever happened. That was until one day, when returning to her castle, the queen saw a poor boy begging.
Please, Your Highness, can you help a poor boy?
I'd gladly give you some money, boy, but I didn't bring any with me,
said the queen.
Perhaps you can give me that old chest so I can sell it for a little money in town.
Well, I don't know.
At first the queen hesitated, because she had been told the chest was magic. But on seeing how poor the boy was, she gave it to him.
All right, boy, here's the chest.
Thank you, Your Royal Highness, thank you.
The boy took the chest and opened it. Immediately, all the most wonderful things one could imagine started flying out of the chest, accompanied by the sound of singing.
I look for it in others. Goodness always starts in yourself. I look for it in others. Goodness always starts in yourself. Why look for it in others? Goodness always starts in yourself,
went the song. And as well as enjoying all the wonders of the magic chest, the queen learned to set an example in virtue, and she became the best queen ever to reign over that kingdom. The end. George the Giant by Pedro Pablo Sacristán. George the Giant had lived for centuries in the Cave of Anger. The giants were peaceful, solitary beings up until the time when King Terry the Terrible accused them of ruining the harvest. King Terry then ordered,
"The giants must be hunted down."
Only George survived this, and since then he had become the most ferocious creature there had ever been. He became invisible, and anyone who entered his cave came to a sticky end. No matter how brave or powerful they were, many past kings, ashamed by the behavior of Terry the Terrible, had tried to make peace with George, but it was all in vain. His anger and fury meant that he would do away with any human being he ever clapped eyes on, without listening to what they said. Even though the kings now left him alone, George's hatred for humans remained as strong as ever. There was a fabulous treasure inside George's cave, and many adventurers and warriors came there from all corners of the world to try to take it. Even so, one day the young princess was bitten by a snake from the swamps. The only antidote was a secret potion known only to giants. So, the king had no choice but to beg for George's help. He sent his best soldiers and bravest knights, promising them,
"If any one of you is successful, you may have my daughter, the princess's hand in marriage."
However, neither their magic shields, nor their most powerful weapons, nor their most gleaming armor could do anything in the face of George's fury. Finally, the king asked for help throughout the kingdom, still promising the princess's hand and offering the protection of the best wizards. Many tried, armed in all sorts of different ways, and protected by the best magic, including even an invisibility spell. But every last one of them failed. Then, one day, a young musician turned up at George's cave, armed with only a harp. He made a plea to the wizards.
I want to change into a beautiful flower and have the voice of an angel.
And so there appeared at the cave entrance an incredibly beautiful flower, which was singing a lovely tune to the sound of a harp. George the Giant was used to hearing only the ugly clanking of weapons, shields, and armors. On hearing something so different and so wonderful, his anger started to subside. The flower kept singing, and George moved closer. He took the flower in his hand, so he would be able to hear it better. The song was the story of a young princess close to death, who could only be saved by a good-hearted giant. George was moved and listened with great emotion. He became so calm and tranquil that the flower felt it was safe enough to stop singing. And in his normal speaking voice, he told George all about the princess and how she needed George's help. He also told George that the king wanted to come to a fair and lasting peace agreement with him. George, tired of so much fighting and seeing the truth of what the flower was telling him, left his cave and his anger behind and went to heal the princess. The young musician not only overcame George's anger, he also won the princess's heart and the hearts of all in the kingdom. Eventually, he became the best king that land had ever had. The end. Invitation to the Ball by Pedro Pablo Sacristán.
Once upon a time, there was a terribly untidy prince who always ignored his parents when they asked him to clean up his mess. The neighboring kingdom's princess, who he was secretly in love with, organized a lavish ball and invited all the princes from the nearby lands. The untidy prince was excited.
I shall prepare myself with great care.
However, on the day of the ball, his room was so messy that he couldn't find his invitation.
Oh my, what a mess. Whoever lives here is a terrible slob. Oh, wait a minute. It's me. I'm such a slob.
He searched and searched desperately.
Oh, where can it be? Oh, somewhere in this grand mess is the key to my future happiness.
But it was nowhere to be seen. So he decided to tidy up his entire room.
Oh, clean it shall be, so all can see how happy I will be.
After making his room spotless, he found his invitation.
Oh, wait a minute. Here it is. It's been in my hand all along. How silly of me.
However, when he finally arrived at the ball, he was so late that everyone had left.
Hey, where did they all go? I only took a few minutes to clean up my room. Oh, wait a minute. It's Thursday. Oh, I missed the whole party by a whole week. Not only am I a slob, but I can't tell time.
The prince was distraught and had most definitely learnt his lesson.
You know what? I shall keep my room clean, so I won't lose the next invitation.
But not everything was bad luck. The princess had not found a boyfriend at the dance. So, a few weeks later, she threw another party. This time, because he had everything well organized, the prince didn't lose his invitation.
I'm dressed in record time and with my invitation in my hand.
The prince got to the ball on time, met the princess, and they fell head over heels in love.
Oh, Prince, you are so sharp and clean. You are truly the man of my dreams. Really you are.
And they lived happily ever after. The end.
Prince Lapio by Pedro Pablo Sacristán. There was once a very unfair prince. Although he seemed the perfect prince, handsome, brave, and intelligent, Prince Lapio gave the impression that no one had ever explained to him the nature of justice. If two people came to him over some dispute, expecting him to resolve the matter, he would decide in favor of whichever seemed most charming, or most handsome, or whoever had the best-looking sword. Tired of all this, Lapio's father, the king, decided to get a wise man to teach his son about justice.
My wise friend, please take him away,
said the king,
and don't bring him back until he is ready to be a just and fair king.
The prince and wise man left by boat. But they suffered a shipwreck and ended up together, alone, on a desert island. There had been no food or water. For the first few days, Prince Lapio, a great hunter, managed to catch some fish. When the old man asked him to share the fish with him, the young prince refused. However, some days later, the prince's fishing became less successful, while the old man was managing to catch birds almost every day. Just as the prince had done, the wise man refused to share his catch. Lapio got thinner and thinner until he finally burst into tears and begged the wise man to share some of his food to save him from starving to death.
I will only share them with you,
said the wise man,
if you show me you've learned your lesson.
The prince, having learned what the wise man was trying to teach him, said,
Justice consists of sharing what we have equally.
The wise man congratulated him and gave him some food. That same afternoon, a ship rescued them from the island. On their return journey, they stopped a while by a mountain, where a man recognized the prince and told him,
I am Max, chief of the Maximum tribe. Please help us. We have trouble with the neighboring tribe, the Minimums. We both share meat and vegetables, but we argue on how to share them equally.
Very easily solved,
answered the prince.
Count how many of you there are altogether, and share the food in equal proportions.
And so he had already made good use of what the wise men had taught him. But after saying this, came the sound of 1,000 cries from the mountainside. A horde of angry men came running over, and led by the chief who had asked the question, they leapt on Prince Lapio and took him prisoner. Lapio couldn't understand this at all. They threw him in a prison cell and told him,
You tried to kill our people, and if you don't resolve this problem by daybreak tomorrow, you will stay in prison forever.
They had done this to the prince because the Minimums were small and numerous, whereas the Maximums were enormous, but there were very few of them. So the solution suggested by the prince would have starved the Maximums to death. The prince understood the situation and spent all night thinking. The next morning, when they asked him for a solution, he said,
Don't share your food equally. Instead, share it in according to how much each person eats. Give people food according to their size.
The Maximums liked this answer so much that they released the prince and held a great party, decorated him with gold and jewels, and bid him and the wise man a safe journey. As they were walking along, the prince commented,
I've learned something new. It's not fair to give the same to all. The fair thing is to share, but you must take people's different needs into account.
The wise man smiled with satisfaction. Already close to the palace, they stopped at a small village. A man of very poor appearance received them and made sure they were well attended. Meanwhile, another man of similar poor appearance threw himself to the ground in front of them, begging.
Nickel, even a penny will do.
A third, who seemed to be a rich man, sent 2 of his servants to tend the prince and the wise man and provide them with what they needed. The prince so enjoyed his time there that on his departure he presented the villagers with all the gold which the Maximums had given him. Hearing this, the poor man, the beggar, and the rich man all ran up to the prince, each one asking him for his share.
How will you share it out?
Asked the wise man.
The 3 are very different, and it looks like the one who gives away more gold is the richest.
The prince hesitated. The wise man was right. The rich man had to pay his servants. He was the one who had spent the most gold, and he looked after them well. However, the prince was starting to develop a sense of justice, and something told him that the first conclusion on that matter was not sufficient. Finally, the prince took his gold and made 3 piles, one very big, another medium size, and the last one small. In that order, he gave them to the poor man, the rich man, and the beggar. Saying his goodbyes, the prince set off with the wise man, heading back to the palace. They walked in silence, and when they reached the palace gate, the wise man asked,
Tell me something, young prince. What does justice mean to you? I think justice lies in sharing, taking into account necessities, but also the merits of the individual. Is that why you gave the smallest pile to the troublemaking beggar?
Asked the wise man.
In him I saw both necessity and merit, since he helped us all he could, despite being poor. The medium pile was for the rich man. Even though he attended to us wonderfully, he really did not have much need for more gold. The small pile I gave to the bothersome beggar, because he did nothing worthy of reward. However, given his great need, it was also right to give him something to live on,
explained the prince.
I think you'll be a fine king, Prince Lapio,
continued the wise man, embarrassing the prince. And he was right. From then on, the prince became known throughout the kingdom for his fairness and wisdom. Some years later, his ascent to the throne was celebrated by all. And so it was. King Lapio became remembered as the best leader the kingdom had ever known.
So I hope you enjoyed that book. We will continue to hear more of it on Wednesday at 12 o'clock. This is Bonnie Valda from the Panic Public Library, wishing for you and your family a happy and healthy day today. Goodbye.